Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Dr. Johnson, members of the board, Mr. Thurman. The Division of Human Resources report as of April 1st, 2014 reflects the number of vacancies, reflects the number of new contracted employees, new non-contracted employees, resignations, and terminations. In addition to that, I have provided for you a vacancy update as of April 1, 2014, with once again a comparison of vacancy data by district as well as vacancy trends throughout the entire school year. This concludes the Division of Human Resources report for April 2014.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Orson.
Dr. Wordsmith, I appreciate you including Atlanta, though it sounds like they're a little difficult to figure out actually what their vacancies are, but at least on an ongoing court basis. I do have a question about the Gwinnett number, because that seems like an extraordinarily high number. Do you know anything that's...
Yes, they're beginning to post their vacancies for FY15.
So could this also reflect non-renewals on their part, or...
Essentially, it's just vacancies as is stated on their website. They
Okay.
currently have 173 posted.
So if we see something like that, it would be great, maybe in the future. Maybe just make contact with them. Are they current vacancies or are they vacancies going forward for the next academic year?
They are vacancies going forward for the next academic year, as many school districts have stopped contracting individuals for this school year.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Thank you.
Dr. Morley.
Yes, just one question, Dr. Wordsmith. I've seen that there have been emails going around about the assessments that's being put forth with teachers or anyone who breaks a contract in the system. How are we handling that? Because I was out this past weekend at school and I was approached by that and basically gave an explanation that I thought would be amenable. But wanted to know how the district is handling that, because as I said to them, I think they're rumors and have to be careful of the myths, the things that are spreading and the things that don't make any sense. And I know I've seen some of that on the news, but how are we actually explaining to the staff the implications and the fact that it was already there and just has not been actually enforced?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Morley, for that question. On Monday, March 26, 2014, approximately 6,800 contracts were issued to school-based contractual employees. These individuals were recommended for a contract renewal for the 2014-2015 school year. Included in the contract essentially was a liquidated damages clause, and this clause was inserted based upon the following premises. First of all, it is our goal to improve student academic achievement in the district. However, student academic achievement has been negatively impacted, especially last year, as we had a significant challenge whereby 93% of our employees signed contracts. However, prior to the beginning of the school year, of that 93%, approximately 500 or more requested a release from contract. The initial challenge, as I stated, when those individuals, 93%, that particular number was provided as a staffing guide for the district. Basically, that's what we based our projections for FY14 on. It was extremely difficult when a number of individuals walked in during the months of July and August and simply requested a release. We had over 500 releases. 100, we denied those particular releases and those individuals returned to the district. Well, 400 did not. We even had up to or over 50 who simply did not show up on the first day of school. That once again significantly impacts student academic success, because the actual pool of qualified candidates has been severely diminished with 5 days prior to the school year. So once again, the liquidated damages clause is essentially a clause that was inserted in this year's contract. Please note that it is nothing new in that there have been a number of districts too that currently have that clause in their particular contract. Fulton County is one, and during my human resources meetings with other human resources professionals, I was advised that Marietta City may also include a liquidated damages clause of maybe up to $1,000. So once again, this is not a new clause that has not been inserted in other district contracts. As a matter of fact, as I stated, a number of districts have had this particular clause. But in addition to that, please note that the Educators Code of Ethics, for which all district employees, all certified educators are governed by, clause or standard 8 specifically states that abandonment of contract, a teacher cannot abandon a contract. This is a particular code of ethics for which all district employees are trained on every year in the months of August and September. So once again, it is with that premise that we inserted the liquidated damages clause because it's supported by the abandoning contract provision that's a part of the Educators Code of Conduct. Lastly, as I've stated, in accordance with Board of Education Policy GAA, all school-based contracts will be presented to the Board of Education for approval on May 5th, 2014. It is at that time that we are asking employees, make the commitment, choose DeKalb. Our children deserve highly qualified, highly educated individuals for which we want to utilize to impact student academic success.
Mr. McMahon?
Thank you, Chair. This is a little larger question than just hiring and firing. It's more on salary scale. And I know that the board has to really think about how we're compensating our teachers. You know, we're doing what we can right now by adjusting policy so that we can have a soft dollar benefit for allowing a teacher to have their child attend the feeder schools. But if we're looking at, even with the 750 breakup clause, you know, fine in there, I'm looking at salary schedule. How do we address the salary schedule? I know APS is dipping in reserves to fund their salaries, but it's significant. I mean, it's a big difference. I'm looking at a 10-year bachelor's degree position in DeKalb pays less than $42,000. APS is $54,000. So we're talking $12,000 a month difference to work in APS just with a bachelor's degree over DeKalb. With a master's degree, it's the same $12,000. Even with a starting salary, first-year bachelor's in APS, you won't even make that in DeKalb until year 12. So I think the big picture, I mean, the decision's not hard for our employees when it comes down to what's best for my family. So I think we just have to look at, is it a metro-wide discussion we have to have about equity? Or that's it. I didn't really have a question. I just want to bring that up. And that's what I'm hearing from our teachers. Is just like, look, you're giving me no choice, you know? I mean, it's pretty simple to make that decision if they're actively hiring over there. So that's where I am with that. Thanks for listening.
I didn't see the light on. Mr. Larson.
No, I mean, I know this harks back to a conversation we had a few months ago, and it's a really difficult dilemma that we created because, I think our teachers, educators with respect, I worry, I don't know, the insertion of this clause, or I think people may feel a little blindsided. I understand the sentiment about it. I think the part of the dilemma, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there are remedies available already without this liquidated damages provision under the Professional Standards Commission, but they are also pretty draconian, which is your certificate can get old, and I don't know that that's desired. I think, to Mr. McMahon's point, we struggle with wanting to create a set of conditions where people want to stay here, and not only just want to stay, but actually want to spend their career here. And I think we've lost some of that. Some of it from external factors, some of it from our own doing, what happened prior to us all being here. And I just worry, the lawyer in me gets, I know how liquidated damages provisions work. I mean, is it I guess what I'm struggling with is it our intent under those circumstances to say, The problem still exists. If somebody leaves, regardless of whether we get a liquidated damages provision, we still have a hole in the classroom, and our kids are still suffering. And so it seems to me ultimately everything we need to do has to address that outcome. You know, whether we collect a little money as a result of a liquidated damages provision doesn't really solve that problem. That if some teacher decides or has an opportunity, and we're mindful of, you know, these are human beings trying to support their families, trying to make a living. And I think we're all struggling with this because I think we ultimately want to protect the students in our system, but we also want to respect the educators who are educating those children.
Mr. Chairman, I see it from a somewhat different perspective. First of all, we should emphasize that this represents less than half of a percent of the men and women teachers who teach here. The great majority, 98, 99% of the folks who sign contracts live up to those contracts and live up to their commitment to appreciate and honor the code of ethics. And when I look at it, and by the way, when this happened last year, I received multiple emails and I've been contacted by parents. And I have one email here in particular that Mr. Orson is familiar with, who were parents who were very upset when their child did not have a certified teacher in front of them on day one. And what we have to determine is that who and what is our highest priority. I hear us talk about it a lot, that it's academic achievement and it's the students. But then the implementation of it, we always hesitate a little bit. Every child deserves on day one a qualified, certified teacher. When you have hundreds, if not thousands of children who for the first 3 or 4 weeks of school are without that teacher, they fall behind, and ladies and gentlemen, oftentimes, more often than not, they never catch up. They never catch up. And if you recognize that this is not a recent problem, based on my research, this has been an ongoing problem in DeKalb County. And the cumulative impact of that is extremely detrimental to the academic careers of our children. The misinterpretation of the liquidated damages clause is not the $750. And I want to emphasize something. It gives us the right to pursue it. No one has yet determined whether or not we will, but at least we have the right to do it legally. The real thing, the real focus of this is that we want all of our outstanding, highly qualified teachers and certified employees to come back next year. But if for some reason you decide to pursue other career goals, we just need to know. Because if we reserve this job for a person, that also means we turn down 5 or 6 other people who would equally or maybe sometimes better qualified for that same job. By the first week in August, they are gone. And they're not there. It's a tough call, and I accept for it. This is not a board decision. I want the public to understand this was a call made by the superintendent. Because at the end of the day, I think that at the end of the day, my priority is towards the children. And as it relates to the clause, it only tracks what every educator has already sworn to follow. That is to fulfill my contract. And that includes the superintendent. Even if some opportunity might present itself that might draw my attention or some latent desires, if I have a contract, then I'm responsible for fulfilling that contract. For fulfilling the contract. Secondly, it's not fair to the men and women educators who do fulfill that contract, who, once they make the commitment, but you know what, I'm going to stand by my word. And when 99 and 98%, 98, 10% of the people are doing the right thing, I think we have to respect them as well. And if we focus our attention on trying to address those who, for whatever reason, decide not to fulfill the responsibility, I think our concern is misplaced. We have to respect the men and women who say, no, this is my commitment that they make, not to the DeKalb County School District, but it's a commitment to the children that you agree to teach. See, it's not a commitment to Michael Thurman, not a commitment to the DeKalb or the school board. The commitment is to the children. And these are the young men and women, young boys and girls, who on day one will not have that teacher. So all we really are asking is that if somewhere you decide, and you have every right to, because everybody want to make more money, there's nothing wrong with that. But number one, just let us know. What happened, what Dr. Ward Smith pointed to, is that people signed multiple contracts and had multiple contracts signed the entire summer and didn't say anything. And then almost 100 people just did not show up. It's unacceptable. You can't have a school district. You can't even pretend to advocate for academic excellence if you have people who just don't show up. I got a contract for this iPhone. If I don't pay it, the contract holds. I care more about our children than I do about the cell phone. And we have to care more about our children. We want everybody back. But if you're going to pursue other goals and other careers, that's okay too. It's just that you should notice that you're doing it. That's all we're asking. We're not trying to force anybody to stay or force anybody to go. It's just that we deserve to know so that we can make arrangements so that at Redan and at Fernbank and at all other schools all across the district on day one, every child will have the opportunity to have a qualified teacher standing in front of them. That's it. And we're not asking a lot. I don't think, other than if you give your word, keep it, or not. It's a thing in politics, so you gotta come back. You make a promise, you come back and say, you know what, I can't fulfill that promise. And by the way, we still have hardship provisions. They are still, Dr. Ward Smith, and I don't think the media is really focused on the fact that this is not an ironclad contract. There are instances where you can be relieved of your contractual obligation. Is that right?
Yes, sir. They are married, moving, spousal transfer, or promotion. Okay. Illness, marrying, moving, spousal transfer, or promotion.
Yeah,
so with documentation to support that, we do release individuals from contract.
Yeah, if you find a better job to pay you more money, heck, tell us where it is. We follow you. So we support that. We're not against that. We support that. But it was tough last year. It was stunning, really, when you really think about what occurred, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I took so long with that. But I want to make it clear, this was not a board decision. It was a superintendent decision. It was a superintendent decision. It wasn't a board decision. It was a superintendent decision to try to do what's in the best interest of the students and the children in this district.
Well, we appreciate you taking that stand, Mr. Superintendent. At least I do, and other board members can speak for themselves. Ms. Dr. Irwin?
Just a quick question. Have you got any sense of how this is affecting teacher morale?
As Mr. Thurman has stated, there have been some comments and concerns relative to teachers, but the majority of them are just simply unclear of what the provision calls for. As Mr. Thurman stated, I was just at Howard University on last week. There were roughly 60 educators who were requesting or saying, I want to come to DeKalb, is there somewhere I can come? So essentially, we're reserving spots for those individuals who are committing to returning. However, yet I'm turning away 60 if in fact everyone states to come back. So it's essentially one of those things whereby teachers know they are not happy. Many of them have put in writing, as well as called our e-contract hotline to ask questions, but once we explain to them what the provision means and what their options are, they're more apt to move forward with making a decision as to whether they're going to sign it or not.
We have plans to roll that clarity out in mass email and mass training.
Do we have plans
to roll out that clarity as far as the liquidated damages clause?
Oh, yes, sir. We actually sent that out on Monday in frequently asked questions, as well as information to the entire employee population. So yes, sir, we have frequently asked questions and information.
One thing I want to add, Mr. Chair, if I could, to Dr. Irwin's question, I received some responses from parents who said, finally, the DeKalb has some guts to stand up for our children. Now, I've heard from both. And so to that extent, I think it's fine. And Dr. Ward Smith mentioned something else that I forgot to mention. We've had a spike in the number of applications from highly qualified men and women who want to come to work in DeKalb County. We want to keep all our veteran teachers, but we also know that we are now becoming a much more attractive option, even with our salary challenges, than what we may have been in the past. And we don't want to lose these individuals either, for those who want to come and who are willing to sign the contract as written.
Dr. Marley?
Thank you for the explanation. And the reason why I broached the subject is because of just what we just did. I think is making sure that there's clarity. As I said in the conversations with people this weekend, there was not clarity. And there were rumors being spread. And I did use the same example. What if I hired you and this person was qualified and you at the last minute decided that you want to go somewhere, this person has gone on, then we're stuck. Rockdale has been doing this for quite some time. So the other systems, I dealt with 2 people personally with this last year. They did. They waited until the 11th hour. And it is not fair for our children nor for the district for this to take place. And if we're talking about accountability, if we're going to teach accountability, we have to practice accountability. We're going to be a board, we need to be accountable. We're going to be teachers, educators, we need to be accountable. The other thing is recognizing that teachers, when we look at, if we have 100 leaving, we still have 99.9% who are passionate about staying. And our teachers have passion. Teaching and education is something that's born within the spirit of people. As an educator, no matter how much you're getting paid, even though we all like to make more money, the bottom line is that you're not going to abate your responsibilities, you're not going to leave an obligation that you've committed to, and so there are only a few. We want to make sure that we're just clear and that we're speaking the same language to let people know this is not punishment, but when you sign a contract, being in business for myself, I have clauses in mind. And if you don't show up, you're going to pay for the whole amount. And so we have to be able to have some leverage to make sure that we're accountable, but that our students get the best and the brightest. You just don't wait till the last minute. But there are only a few, and I think we need to recognize that. I most certainly want to see our teachers make more money. They deserve to make more money. But we do know that we've got to deal with those furlough days first. Am I right, Dr. Ward Smith? Before we can look at the steps, look at everything else, we've got to deal with those furlough days. It is a task, it's a job, and we have an obligation. And so we've all got to come together and begin to start looking at putting our money where our mouth is and look at what we can do to not only recruit, but retain and maintain the best and the brightest. And so I think as a board, at some point, we're going to have to begin to look at what can we do to support our superintendent, support Mr. Thurman, and the administration to be able to say, yeah, this is a small levy for the fact of what we're trying to do. And we didn't create this board. We inherited it, but we have an obligation in order to fix it. But we've got to stand by and be able to show our teachers that we appreciate them. We know how difficult it is, but we want to do everything that we can do in our power to first get rid of those furlough days and deal with the other tasks as far as those who are not upholding their commitment to the contract. Because we cannot wait until the 11th hour, the day before school starts. And I had one guy last year, was adamant, and he pushed and pushed. Attorneys and everything else was going on. And the superintendent and Dr. Ward Smith, that we went back and forth with this. And he had multiple contracts, as Dr. Johnson said. And he knew, and I said to him, did you not know where you wanted to be? And so he was tossing them up and letting the best one fall. And what really bothered me, he was a counselor. If you're going to do this, and you're teaching credibility to our students, we need to hold our people accountable. It may be at a cost, but in the end, it'll work out.
Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, Chairman. For clarification purposes, Dr. Ward Smith, how many teachers do we have in the district?
Roughly 6,300 teachers, 6,800 contracts is inclusive of principals, assistant principals, counselors, media specialists, etc. But for certified teachers, roughly 6,300.
Okay, and but of the 6,800, including administrators, that's the total number of contracts extended?
School-based, yes, school-based contracts which were issued.
Offered, right?
Yes, sir.
Did we extend contracts to every individual, or did we withhold some?
Every individual that was recommended for contract renewal received one. We do have currently 170 delays, And we provide principals with the option to delay contract recommendations for those individuals who start late. So for instance, if they didn't start until February, we provide them with additional time or for any other reasons for which they wish to delay contracts. So we have about 160, 70 delayed contract recommendations.
Does that include the non-renewal?
Yes,
You
sir.
may want to emphasize.
Yes, sir. To date, we currently have 22 individuals who have been requested, or we're going to send out for a who have received a non-renewal, an approved non-renewal recommendation. Of the remaining 160 delays, some of those may be non-renewals as well, but essentially we are required by May 15th, 2014 to notify every individual who will receive a contract renewal recommendation to provide that information.
May 15th is the deadline to either you get a renewal or you're
That is correct.
looking for a job.
That is correct.
Right, okay. And just to reiterate what Dr. Morley was saying about the process that the board's dealing with our furlough days, you know, there's $3 million a piece per day, right? So we need to make up at least, what, $9 million just to get back to 180 day, which is a big number. We also have to add to our reserves. But through our budget process, which starts now and goes through June, I think every board member here is advocating to push as many dollars to each classroom, to each teacher as possible, and that given the opportunity, I think the board, and I'm speaking like Dr. Johnson's just speaking for myself, I would rather reward renewed contracts with a $750 stipend than hitting them for I understand you got to do what you got to do, what's best. But if there's funds available, I think we would all encourage thank you for staying with DeKalb and recommending a stipend in that if it's financially feasible. So that's where I am. Thank you.
No further questions. Is there any opposition to placing this item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda.